Hi guys, welcome back to Kelly's Crafts. Today we're going to do a fun craft with, again, very simple ingredients. This is salt dough. For salt dough, you just need flour. Any kind of all-purpose flour is fine. Salt, water, and alum, which is a preservative. This is kind of optional, but if you want it to last a little bit longer, then you might want to use that. And also food coloring. So let's get started. Because I made a mistake when we were starting, I already put the 2 cups of flour in the bowl because we're going to mix the dry ingredients first. So we use 2 cups of flour. We're going to add 1 cup of salt. Look at that salt pour. Woo. Okay, a little bit less, but that'll work. And 1 teaspoon of alum. 1 teaspoon. Okay. So after you add 2 cups of salt, 1 cup of flour, and a teaspoon of alum, you just stir it together. And you're going to mix all the ingredients well. Let's see, I'm stirring. Oops, I'm making a little bit of a mess. This actually works better in a glass bowl because you can see how well it's mixed. Unfortunately, I don't have any good glass bowls that are this big. Either they're too small or way too big. So after you've finished mixing the dry ingredients, we're going to add the water. Next, we're going to add the water. So here's the water. It should be cold water, and it's 3/4 of a cup of water. Now, the other thing to remember is that when you're using food coloring, here's our food coloring box, you want to add the food coloring to the water because that way it will be all one color when you start mixing it with the dry ingredients. So I think for this dough, I'm going to try to do purple. So here, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drops of red. Let's see what the proportions are. This is a lovely red color, so let's add some blue. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. How does that look? I'm going to use my spoon and stir it up a bit. It's a pretty dark purple. I think that should work. So, let's see. Our next step is to pour just a little bit of purple in. We'll start mixing. So it's better not to do this all at once. You want to do a little bit at a time. So we'll mix. We'll add some more. Because it kind of overwhelms everything if you do it all at once. And that happens. All right, I'm going to add the rest of my water. I'll try not to tip it because we don't want it to be too messy. Now it's kind of clumping up into little balls, if you can see inside my thing. I'm gonna keep mixing while I'll let you stop for a minute. Now, if it seems too dry, you can add a little bit more water. Some recipes I've found for this salt clay call for a cup of water rather than 3/4 of a cup of water. And once you get to the stage, and you want to make sure you get everything on the bottom. So once you get to the stage where it's kind of like little balls, that's the fun part. Then you start reaching in and squishing. You want to mix it up and get all of the little pieces. Now I am going to put it on the table. I'm gonna actually lower the camera a little bit, just a sec. Okay, So mix and kind of roll the dough until you get all of the pieces and all of the salt clay that's in the dough and salt that hasn't quite combined yet. And if you have a place where you can do this, sometimes it's good to just put it out on a table. That way you can pick up all the extra pieces of flour and salt and just keep mixing. I think I should have added more color because it's kind of more of a vague pink rather than purple. So you just want to squish it until you get all of the pieces in and just keep going. So there you go, salt clay. Now what do you do with salt clay? You can do a few different things with this salt clay once you've got it clayey, and isn't that beautiful? You could roll it out and use a cookie cutter. I'm going to, I guess I better go a little bit further back. Just take a rolling pin, roll it into about this thick, like a very thick pie crust or pizza dough, and cut something out. Oops, forgot I put all my trash in there. I don't have a cookie cutter. My quick kitchen is ill-equipped, but you can use, like, I'm just gonna make some samples here. So here is a round. If it was a cookie, it could be a cookie. I'll do two, because I am going to do the after product too. So here we have two. Uh-oh. If things stick, you can always use a little bit of flour, add it to your working surface so that you have some flexibility. So now I have two round cookies. If you want to make them last longer, you can either let them air dry, which will take a while, or you can cook them at a very low temperature in an oven. So say if your oven goes as low as 180, that's the perfect temperature. If it doesn't, then 200 will work. It won't take very long, probably 15 minutes or so, and you might want to flip it up. You don't want them to get brown because that won't work. But that will dry them. It's more drying them out than actually cooking them. The other thing you can do with salt clay is make something. I think I will make, let's see, maybe I'll try to make a dog. So, or I don't know, let's see. Let's see what kind of a creature it turns into. One round ball of clay. Let's do a couple. Well, it's more oval. I'll do some legs. And again, if it's too dry, you could add a little bit of water. If it's too wet, you can add a little bit of flour. You really don't need to add more salt. So here we've got two legs. Let's see, I'll go back a little bit. 4 legs. Oh, I think that looks more like the head. It would be a head. Let's see. Pinch it. Make some ears. I think it's an elephant. And there we go, a salt clay elephant. Now, we're gonna do it. So if you have your shapes, what we want to do is do a slight experiment before we dry them out. So for the one that's going to air dry, we're going to just decorate it. I put some glitter glue on it, and we're going to let that dry. I'm actually going to add a little bit more just so that we have some color variation. And I would normally just squeeze this out, but this glitter glue is kind of dried, so I'm just drawing or adding some accents, I guess. Just to make it look a little bit different. One thing we didn't mention was that if you want to hang up your craft afterwards, you will have to make a hole in it, and that has to be done before it either air dries or cooks. So that's what the chopstick was originally for. I made a hole with the chopstick through the top of the shape so that when it dries, there's something to hang it up with. And then with our second one, which is right here, this one's going to cook, so we don't really want to add anything to it because I don't know how that would react in the oven. So instead, we are going to, here, we'll make the hole first. And then I'm actually going to use the chopstick on the non-glittery side to make, well, I guess I have to use this side, a shape. And I'm going to just punch it in a little bit to make a heart. There we go. Our little critter, whatever it is, we're just gonna let dry. Actually, I think it's an elephant. It was supposed to be a dog. So we'll just let that air dry too and see what happens. If you have leftover salt clay, you can always just put it in a plastic bag, get as much air out as you can, seal it, and put it away. It will last for a couple weeks. Some people say you can store it in the refrigerator. Time lapse here because I'm going to dry these out and we'll see what happens next. So see you in approximately 24 hours. Okay, so it's been 24 hours and we're ready for the big reveal. So here is our salt clay ornament that was air dried. The glitter glue kind of has spread out a little bit, so it still needs a couple days to air dry. And as you can see, the back is still pretty wet and clayey. So actually, this would probably be better to decorate afterwards, but you can still leave it drying. Now that the glitter glue is dried, it can be turned over so that the back has more time, more exposure. Here is the one we cooked with the little design on it, and now we can decorate that. And again, I didn't cook it for as long as it probably should have been cooked because I had to cook dinner. So it's still a little bit air drying, but it's pretty, and maybe I'll add some stuff to it now. And here's our little critter. Now, I put some eyes on because it made it look more. The head has not dried to the body. So the thing about it is if you make a shape, you might have to, and it has different pieces, you might have to use a little glue. We can now add a little bit of color. Like I just have a glitter marker here. I'm gonna just color the heart. Now, of course, you can spend a lot of time working on these. And these would make great ornaments for a tree or just for Mother's Day. Actually, I'm gonna write love, Kelly, on mine. I'll give it to my mom for Mother's Day. So see, it looks pretty good. Of course, it's backwards. One thing you'll need to remember is that if you want to preserve your salt clay ornament, you'll need to put some kind of spray-on varnish, or there's several products at craft stores that I don't have here right now. that will preserve them. In a pinch, you could even use clear nail polish. But the thing is, if it's not protected from the environment, if you have a very like wet or moist day, it might just kind of crumble back into the elements that it was made of. And I do think that my clay came out a little bit, I don't think it retained the color as much as it could have, because I didn't use bleached flour. I used non-bleached flour, so the bleached flour comes out white, and this is sort of a off-white, so it didn't, that's one of the reasons why it didn't pick up the color quite as well. If you like this recipe, it's a very simple one, and it's easy to make, and you usually have the ingredients on hand. The alum isn't necessary, it just helps preserve it a little bit and bind the ingredients together. If you want, you can look online and see a lot of different recipes. There are some with cooking oil, which makes it more elastic. There are others where you cook it first, or you have to heat something over a stove. I didn't want to do that because I thought this would be a good one for kids to do on their own. No stove or heat or anything involved. But there are plenty of different recipes, and you can always get out a book at the library. We have several craft books that have recipes in them once we're open again. So I hope you've enjoyed this recipe as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you. And hopefully you will have something fun to try at home that's new and different. And don't let your dog eat them. I don't think they're good for dogs, not that much salt. So I hope you've enjoyed this craft as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thanks. See you next time.